Hello, welcome to Postcolonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and today in my series on postcolonial concept, I will talk about agency, or the question of agency. Now, simply stated, in terms of human actions, agency is anyone's ability to perform any actions as an autonomous human being. The question of agency is crucial in postcolonial studies because as we go and study the colonial histories, the cultural and political representations of native subjects, we always look for native acts of agency, native acts of semiotic agency where they must have said something or written something against the colonial power, or material agency where they literally politically engaged against the colonial power. So that's the question of agency. Similarly, when we read some novels or some texts about the minorities, about the colonies, about women, one of the critiques always is if the author withheld agency from minority characters or from female characters. So that's the question of agency. Now, if you have watched my video on Conrad's Heart of Darkness, and it will come up there in a minute. That was a big question in critique of Conrad's of Heart of Darkness by Achebe, because the question was of agency, because all the African characters in the novel are subservient or silent victims of the colonial power. And since they lacked any agency, hence Achebe could claim convincingly that this is a racist text. Now, the question of agency becomes slightly problematic in post-structuralism, after Foucault, Derrida, and Althusser's work on ideology. Because if we believe that so much of what we do is overdetermined by the ideology through which we understand the world, as per Althusser, or is discursively produced, meaning that we don't produce subject, we're not necessarily subjects, we produce subject effects, as per Foucault, and that discourses overdetermine sometimes how we act or what we say. So then the question of agency in postcolonial theory becomes problematic, because if so much of what we do is overdetermined by the ideology in which we exist or the discourse that defines us, then how do we create a space in it as individuals, right? Can we be agential? Can we be in control of our own actions, or is everything overdetermined? But that still centers the question of agency, even if we are debating whether or not being a fully realized, centered agent is possible. The question of agency is still front and center. So overall, with this concept, if you ever read a novel about the colonies, or a post-colonial novel, or a metropolitan novel about another culture or a minority constituency, the question of withholding agency from characters from the minorities or the colonies can still figure very prominently. And it plays a role in the real world politics as well. Okay, if someone speaks for a constituency without acknowledging that they can speak for themselves, or without assigning them a voice in their own life in the world, then that is a question of erasing someone's agency. So by and large, it's still a deeply useful, though slightly problematic term, and I hope now when you read any post-colonial novels or any stories, you will be thinking in terms of the question of agency, and that might help you read a novel or a short story differently. That's all I have on agency. If you have any questions, concerns, please send them my way and I'll be happy to answer them. And I'm grateful for your time. And if you have not already done that, please do subscribe to the channel so that you get timely notifications of what's coming up next. Thank you so much, and until next time, as always, peace and love.